everybody, to the annual IGSA meeting. A meeting, as you are well aware, we hold traditionally every year. But this year, as you can see by the character of this meeting alone, is very much different to the previous years. We obviously, as an organization, um, had to deal with the same problems the whole industry had to deal with. And I'm happy to say that we came through as an organization stronger and more prepared for the years coming up as ever. All this has been done thanks to the work of our staff, especially Peter Doret, Mark Pace, and Michelle. And I'd like to thank them for this, especially that the decisions they had to make were not the easy ones. We obviously supported them as much as we could, but still, the kudos and thanks definitely should be directed to them. Having said that, all the details what we have achieved in this very difficult year and how we achieved that and what we are planning for the next upcoming year, you're going to see in this presentation with Peter and Mark together have prepared, and which they will now present to you. Thank you very much. Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, Roman. Let's move to the next slide. I would like to thank all our members, specifically the platinum member, gold members, as you can see, as well as our silver members, bronze, and bronze members for supporting this organization. We have a significant number of members throughout the years. Now, this is my 22nd year that we have been operating the GSA organization in the continued desire to help the industry achieve its objectives. I would like to quickly announce our board of directors. You just heard Roman Chubak as the chairman from Novomatic, who addressed the audience. He's supported by Earl Hall, a vice chairman for Access AI. Our treasurer and secretary is also part of the panelists, Mr. Paul Burns from Atlantic Lotteries. And we also have, excuse me for that, Nimish from Aristocrat, Adrian Marcoux from IGT, Ricky from Microgaming Software, Syed Hussain from Oregon State Lottery, Martin Padak from Playtech, and Bala Kutar from Scientific Games. So thank you for their time and service to support this organization for the global gaming industry. With that being said, this is the agenda that we put together for you. Mark is going to talk about what we have achieved in 2020. Mark is our vice president of the organization and managing director of GSA in Europe. It's going to be followed by Paul Burns, who's talk about the financial summary for 2020 and discussing about the financial proposition for 2021. I'm going to be talking a little bit about what we're looking forward to do in 2021 and what some of the challenges will be. And then it's our pleasure to announce a keynote speaker, Jason Lane, Deputy President of the International Association of Gaming Regulators, and also the acting CEO currently of the Jersey Gambling Commission. That will be followed by a short member question period for anybody who has members. Please raise your hand at the end of the presentation, and we can then make all the panelists visible and live so we can have a dialogue with any of the questions that might come up. With that being said, Mark, I'm going to make myself mute. I'll leave it up to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you, Roman. Good morning, everyone. I would also like to welcome you to our annual meeting, and I'm going to walk you through, as Peter said, a recap of 2020, a year that I'm sure we shall not soon forget. So Peter, next slide, please. 2020 was, for many obvious reasons, a very challenging year. The land-based side of our industry was, I guess to put it mildly, quite significantly impacted. There are areas of the world where casinos are actually still closed. Some regulators allowed casinos to reopen only to shut them down again, and other jurisdictions have allowed casinos to operate, but perhaps at limited capacity. As Roman mentioned, the pandemic did not spare IGSA from its impact, but as I will be sharing with you, we not only survived, but we were also able to introduce new alliances, new products, new standards, and new members. And even in light of the nasty little virus, and especially because of the impact it had, we had to focus on managing our expenses even more so than we already did. So next slide, Peter. As you know, IGSA has a long history of working with the policy domain, the regulators and legislators that provide oversight for our industry. As you also may know, IGSA has a very vibrant regulatory committee that meets monthly. The regulatory committee is open only to regulators, and they meet in this protected forum to discuss common issues, to brainstorm ideas, and based on the outcomes of those discussions, to ask IGSA if there's a technical solution that we could develop to address specific issues. The certification database interface, commonly known as CDI, is just one example of a standard created specifically through this process. In 2020 and even in 2019, we met and worked closely with regulators and legislators all over the world in places like Singapore, Macau, Japan, France, Spain, Sweden, Malta, and many others. Sorry. Um, our work with the European Commission and the many national standards setting bodies that comprise CEN, or as it's known, the European Committee for Standardization, is another such example of our work with the policy domain. And we have in the past also spoken with and presented to a number of various local regulatory associations, such as the Gaming Regulators European Forum, the North American Gaming Regulatory Association, uh, NIGC, the National Indian Gaming Commission, and the National Tribal Gaming Commissioners and Regulators Association. However, in 2020, what we really wanted to do was to expand and deepen our work with the policy domain. So we're very excited to have announced a new strategic alliance focusing on collaboration between the International Association of Gaming Regulators and IGSA. And quite frankly, even before we announced this collaboration, IAGR published on their website 3 articles that were submitted by IGSA, specifically addressing standards that benefit regulatory authorities. Also, while we just recently announced this collaboration, we've already had a number of meetings with Mr. Mabuto Zwane, who is IAGR's president, and as Peter just said, Mr. Jason Lane, who is IAGR's deputy president. Mr. Zwana is also the CEO of the Eastern Cape Gambling and Betting Board. So those meetings really were to discuss exactly what areas should be part of our first collaborations. And I'm really looking forward to Mr. Lane's keynote address later on, and I'm sure you'll find it most informative. Peter, next slide. Um, New products. So in interesting as COVID, ran and continues to run its course around the world, the events and the shows and the conferences that would bring many of us and our colleagues from around the world together were shuttered. Conferences like WGES, G2E, and countless others shows had to essentially change overnight. The companies that put those events together had to drastically rethink their products from in person events with thousands of attendees to virtual ones. Well, I've got to tell you, we took a page out of that playbook and did likewise. In 2020, we were supposed to be focusing very heavily on education of the industry and policy domains. That was, in fact, our top priority. A year where we were going to focus on sharing the benefits that our products, the IGSA standards, really deliver to the industry. So, since we couldn't travel, we turned to YouTube and Zoom to help spread the word. The Conversations series of YouTube videos and Zoom webinars were actually quite successful and something that we'll continue to produce going forward. As a result of the dialogue that was generated through those events, we were able to identify potential new areas that could benefit from standardization. We're exploring those, and we invite you to stay tuned for future announcements on exactly what that work will entail. Also, you might have noticed by now that I've been saying IGSA. That's because, in recognition of the fact that GSA is truly international with offices in Europe, Japan, Macau, and North America, we've officially changed our name to the International Gaming Standards Association. However, Whether you call us IGSA, whether you call us GSA, or whether you call us whatever you want, we are still the only gaming nonprofit association that focuses on doing what we've always done, using technology to create standards and tools that help to improve the gaming industry. Speaking of tools, one of the other things that we've done is we have retooled the certification and validation tool, or CVT as it's known, which is the golden standard for certifying G2S EGM side implementations. Working with our partner and member Radical Blue, we not only reduced the price of the CVT, but perhaps more importantly, we've increased the functionality that it delivers. I think we've hit the right price and functionality point as a number of companies have already taken advantage of the new packages that are available. One of which includes the Radical Blue toolset of the protocol analyzer, system tester, and G2S scope. Some really good stuff. Um, Also, in line with our educational goal, we have expanded our training curriculum, creating a training program for the Macau Polytechnic Institute that includes 15 plus hours of training, lectures, and industry professional guest speakers, covering a wide range of topics such as the key differences between land based and online gaming, the main technologies used in those verticals, regulatory oversight and how they differ, the use of data and systems, and of course, deep dives into G2S and also G2S coexistence with currently used technologies. Peter, next slide, please. I think much as Roman said, even though we were impacted by COVID, we still continued to have a number of successes. Um, One of those successes was that 2020 was a year where we released updated versions of standards and even new standards. So one of the things that we released was version 1.6 of the third party interface. Sort of as proof that standards and standards documents are living things, this version actually reintroduces functionality that had been thought not needed and removed in the prior version. So, player jurisdiction code support and implementation specific triggers are now back in. In addition, the team identified some new functionality and added a property that identifies the format of the messages being sent to players. And that could be, text or HTML. So that functionality has also been added in. As TPI continues to be implemented and used, I'm sure that the functionality and value it provides as a single common interface between remote gaming systems and the platforms that consume the gaming content they produce, that value will continue to grow, and I'm sure TPI will continue to be enhanced and grow as well. In terms of new standards, the first version of the Regulatory Reporting Interface, or RRI, which creates a standardized way for operators to report data to regulators across the land based, online, and lottery gaming verticals, was also released. Um, RRI supports real time, near real time, and periodic data reporting. And it eliminates the need for suppliers to modify their systems to match the data reporting requirements of the many jurisdictions they're licensed in. One of the things that we heard as an issue is that as companies become licensed in more and more jurisdictions, even though they offer the same games in those different jurisdictions, the regulatory reporting requirements are slightly different, which means they have to go retool. RRI creates a sort of a menu of all the data elements that can be generated from the systems and those games that are being offered. Again, usually the same ones across multiple jurisdictions. The beauty of RRI is that regulators can now pick and choose which data elements they want, what order they want them in, and the frequency that they want them reported on. Again, real time, near real time, or periodic. The supplier systems using RRI then simply fetch this data, format it according to the specific regulatory requirements using the RRI standard, and send it on in that standardized format. I think also really important for people to understand is that RRI was the basis for the online gambling reporting standard that the European Commission has asked CEN to create. I am very honored and very proud to be leading the effort of the CEN Technical Committee 456 that has actually created that OGR standard. Working with me, a number of people, including Ethan Tower from IGSA, as well as many talented regulators and industry professionals from all across Europe. Perhaps besides just creating the standard, one of the biggest accomplishments within that technical committee was creating what is essentially a data dictionary. I don't know what else to call it. It's a listing of all the data elements which are defined not only in terms of their meaning, but also in terms of what type of data they are. So, is the data element, for example, alphanumeric or numeric? How long can it be? How many times can it be reported? Whether it's optional or required, and in some cases, the exact characters that the data element can be comprised of. No more guessing, no more discrepancies between what given name means in one jurisdiction to another. Now there's one standard dictionary that everybody is going to agree to. As you can imagine, this was no easy task when taking into account the many different countries, legal frameworks, and cultures that are represented within that CEN technical committee. Perhaps in a nod to how good a job we did starting out with RRI as the base and working diligently over the past 2 years, the OGR standard was recently voted upon by 31 European countries, and it received only two dissenting votes. Pretty good result there. While not standards per se, IGSA also released a regulatory handbook that discusses standards that deliver functionality targeted to regulatory authorities. And we also published a white paper discussing the merits of using wireless technology on the casino floor. What was interesting about this white paper is that the fact that it came to be was as a result of a request made during one of the conversations webinars that we had produced. So again, these were, although in some cases not very interactive. Zoom tries to make things interactive as possible, but when you have a big audience, it's difficult to have it be as if you were live on a stage with people raising their hands and asking questions. The dialogue that ensues is still quite powerful and results in outputs like this white paper. Peter, next slide, please. Again, another one of our accomplishments, new members. So GSA staff spends a great deal of time meeting with industry professionals. We talk about issues that they're facing, and those professionals are from the regulatory side, from the operational side, from the supplier front. Um, while that's the case, there really is no, I guess, substitute to the information that our members provide us in terms of the issues they're facing. So we're always excited to have new members because to us, well, they're new points of view and fresh new ideas for areas that could potentially benefit from standardization. We were very pleased to welcome three new members in 2020, listed in front of you, and even more excited that the members joined one in GSA Asia, one in GSA Europe, and one in GSA North America. So we spread the wealth there, so to speak. Congratulations on joining and look forward to working with you. Thank you. For the next slide, Peter. As I mentioned before, IGSA was not spared the impact of the pandemic. We had to figure out how to balance getting the work we need to do within a budget that got smaller. Some of those decisions, as Roman alluded to them, were actually the toughest we've had to make in over 22 years of existence. However, over those years, we have been very blessed to work with the same team and the same service providers and have built very strong relationships that have served us and continue to serve us well. So the first thing we did was we were able to negotiate a lower rate for essential services, things like web hosting, email hosting, Arrow, and accounting. However, we had to give up our long-term colleague, Miss Lisa Rodriguez. Now, many of you have worked with Lisa, and I'm sure you'll agree her smile, her personality, her willingness to just help, regardless of what it was, made this a super tough staff reduction. But don't worry, Lisa's well taken care of working with AMS, our service provider. She continues to support other nonprofits, and she's doing quite well. We'd love to have her back. We also had to make a very difficult decision to eliminate our full time technical writer, Mr. Oscar Delgado. However, as a testimonial to the quality of the team, the passion for what we do as a standard setting organization, Oscar has agreed to continue to provide IGSA technical writing services whenever we have the need for that work. So while he's not with us, quote unquote, full time, Oscar is available and has, I will even say, in some cases, just on his own, done work and will continue to do work for us whenever we need technical writing services, which is absolutely awesome. Lastly, Ethan Tower, who many of you have known over the years as our technical slash protocol director. Well, he's decided he's had enough of the rat race and is retiring. Um, I, I've not talked to him about exactly what he's going to be doing, but I think he's going to be spending some more quality time sailing, which is something he already does quite a bit of. But I'm guessing now he's going to have a little bit more time to do more of that. However, he too is still around and available whenever we should need him. So, what we've done in terms of COVID is we've ensured that we have built into the 2021 budget funding to be able to compensate Oscar and Ethan for work that we may ask them to complete during the year. And we have right sized our team while at the same time, most importantly, keeping access to the skills and knowledge in place. And we're looking forward to sustain and grow the association for what will hopefully be a brighter and fingers crossed COVID free next year. Go vaccines. And since I've been talking about finances and budgets, I guess I should now turn it over to our treasurer, Mr. Paul Burns, to give us an update on the 2020 financial results. So with that, Paul, I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mark. And kind of an excellent segue in with kind of the commentary behind the numbers that we are going to present. So if we want to jump in, Peter, next slide, please. So this year, again, as you're all aware, our revenue is membership driven, and as a result of the year that we were in, we did have some members not be in a position to renew, and as a result, our revenue is coming in at 1.32 mil compared to a previous year of 1.6. As a result of that, and as Mark alluded to, very well in detail, we had to manage the expense line accordingly. So we were able to reduce our expenses down. We're going to come in at 1.37, which is lower than our original budget and plans. However, we were still able to, achieve our goals for the year. As a result, we come out with a positive reserve of 12,000, a little bit lower than the previous year of 75. But given the year that the entire membership team has gone through collectively, we've come out of this year in very healthy situation. So moving forward, with kind of those revised expense and resourcing plans in place, and taking what we have built as a foundation towards this end of the year for memberships, our budget for next year for revenue will be 1.26 mil, with expenses just slightly over $1 million, which will put us into a much greater positive reserve that will allow us, as Mark alluded to make some in-flight changes through the year as we identify paths we're going down and try to look at how we're going to backfill and realign resources to address, especially the recent change with Mr. Tower sailing into the sunset, if you will. So, from a financial perspective, we're in good shape to move forward, and we got through the year that everyone needed to get through, and we will course correct and get back on track in 2021.
Thank you, Paul, for that excellent overview, and Mark. I'd like to talk about 2021 and looking ahead, what is a landscape going to look like? And the first thing I'd like to talk about is there's going to be some tremendous change. I mean, if you look at COVID and how the world has changed as a result, it is clear that we now witness an acceleration of trends that we always thought were going to happen. I believe we will witness a deeper integration of online gaming and sports betting within the land-based gaming industry, specifically in the US. I can also see payment digitalization in gaming will enable better regulatory oversight, and KYC processes will play a more significant role. If you look at that payment side, the mobile wallets will allow customers, I think, to fund electronic gaming play throughout the casino property. We will also see an increase in regulations in areas like responsible gaming and AML capabilities, whilst enhancing the gaming experience for our customers. Solutions like using virtual queuing will be offering contactless services that reduce frictions and increase security and convenience for the consumers. Further market consolidation from cash-heavy companies, I think, is something that we are going to experience and witness in 2021. If I go to the next slide then here, I believe GSA is very uniquely positioned. We are, as we all know, the only non-profit neutral standard setting organization in the gaming industry. And I think we worked very hard and are very proud to be seen as people refer to the Switzerland in the gaming industry. And the trust that results from that neutrality enables us to do the work we do to the benefit of the industry. I believe this is one of the reasons why the International Association of Gaming Regulators sees value in our partnership. And we are very grateful to them for that trust. As an organization, IGSA has built up a lot of intellectual property that we will protect to the benefit of all our members. We at the board will continue to explore how to make this intellectual property available to a larger number of licensors. If looking at the strategic vectors of 2021, what we have on our radar screen, number one, sports betting. We all heard about sports betting in 2020, and it's taken over as the dominant growth sector, especially in the United States. Because of that, we feel we have a fiduciary responsibility to empower our members with any policy and regulation that we can propose to facilitate the accelerated growth of sports betting in an organized way. The time has now come for land-based and online standards to align as the operator starts to align. And for us, I mean IGSA, to take that alignment and educate the regulators with it. There is no online and offline anymore. You have a client that needs KYC and digital payments that needs to be regulated. All the online policies and standards need to be aligned with the land-based policies and standards so that we educate the regulators as to where the industry is going to be in the next 18 to 24 months. And if we take all the experience and wisdom we have built and created in the land-based, and we create a document that we call Build a Strategic Roadmap, for example, that can show how we can get this alignment between the land-based and online together, I think this would be a great foundation for a regulatory accompaniment document that can describe and educate on how to do it for the industry the GSA or the IGSA way. If we talk about technology, protocols, and standard integration, the reason why we would aggressively be looking at sports betting policies and regulations, the reason why we would port over the land-based into the online so that we can align, so that we can provide to regulators an industry view of how to do this. This should be the ultimate results of this dialogue and work. We see IGSA's role is managing the integration, taking our technology, taking our protocols, and taking our standards and creating a blueprint for regulatory adoption. Now, ongoing activities, put educational programs together that support the challenges as identified by the International Association of Gaming Regulators. To Mark's point, we had a great dialogue last week with Mobutu, and out of that already came some thoughts as to what we should be addressing together for 2021. And we are indeed truly excited to work closer together to provide the full support to the International Association of Gaming Regulators. We also need to grow the conversation program that we started in 2020 and put together the how-to videos to articulate specific benefits our standards provide to the International Association of Gaming Regulator members. IGSA will be available to support IAGR members as they are updating existing policies or crafting their new policies. And IGSA looks forward to collaborate more closely to work on the creation of regulatory blueprints. It is with great pleasure to me right now to introduce Jason Lane, the Deputy President of the IAGR and CEO of the Jersey Gambling Commission. Jason, I'll leave it up to you.
Peter, thank you very much. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, or good afternoon or evening, depending on where you are in the world. It's a great pleasure and a privilege to join your business meeting and share a few insights around regulatory dialogue and maybe briefly discuss how collaboration with the industry in the development of common standards and common approaches might make navigating the regulatory space a little easier. But before I begin, I just want to mention on behalf of Mobutu Tswane, the president of the International Association of Gaming Regulators, to give his best wishes. He had wanted to join us today, but he's unfortunately been called away on urgent business. He sends his apologies, but I'm very grateful that he's asked me to say a few words on his behalf. So as Peter introduced me, my name is Jason Lane. I'm the Chief Executive of the Jersey Gambling Commission in the island of Jersey. And I'm Vice President of IAGA. To give you a little bit of background of IAGA, we began as an offshoot of the International Association of Gaming Attorneys and Advisors back in the 1980s. And we became a separate and fully independent body in 2011. We're incorporated in Las Vegas, Nevada, but our officers and members are truly international, spanning every continent on the globe. Our mission is to advance the effectiveness and efficiency of gaming regulation by providing a forum where regulators from around the world meet, exchange views and information, and discuss policy amongst themselves and with representatives of the international gaming community. We provide a means of fostering cooperation between regulators in the performance of their official duties, and we provide a central point of contact for inquiries from governments, gaming regulatory agencies and personnel, and representatives of the wider gaming industry, which is of course where you guys fit in. So as you're aware, IAGA was really pleased to receive the IGSA's proposal for collaboration, as we understand the need to evolve and establish progressive new ways to regulate this industry. As regulators, we face a number of problems and challenges. Some, like finding the best way to regulate, are as old as the hills and will likely be around forever. But others, like how to reboot our industry during and after a global pandemic, are really new. Problems and challenges will always be with us, but it's how we face them that matters. One of the things I've noticed in my 20 some odd years in the regulatory space is that regulators are really good at talking about stuff. We're not quite so good, however, actually doing some of the things we like to talk about. Now, I could recall addressing this organization back in 2014 when you held a meeting in London, and I was then the chair of the European Regulatory Association known as GREF. From the early 2000s, the then GSA had been talking to Gref and others about demonstrating the value of harmonizing protocols, gaming machines, and trying to show regulators, particularly outside of the United States, that common standards added value not only to the industry, but would allow for better compliance for regulators and, importantly, allow regulators to discuss their different approaches to regulation, but at least in terms of using the same equipment and technical infrastructure. Now, some 10 or so years later, we face the challenges of regulating across multiple platforms that integrates land-based, mobile, and internet gambling, but within an economic climate that is much more challenging. If I was a negative person, I'd be tempted to look back on the history of collaboration and be a bit depressed. Back in 2014, I quoted Franz Kafka, the Bohemian novelist, who wrote, "Oh, there is hope, an infinite amount of hope, but not for us." But I'm pleased to say I don't hold that view now. I think regulators were becoming more open to dialogue anyway, but one of the things that my organization has been keen to achieve is delivering opportunities to make the regulatory space more efficient and showing our members the global benefit of shared know-how within what is now a truly global industry. So what are the main challenges facing regulators in 2021? Clearly, the impact of COVID-19 has to be managed. Ironically, after all the damage that it's caused, this pandemic may serve as a catalyst for greater cooperation and integration, as all of us need to resume operations, maybe cut costs, and start increasing revenue. Governments, politics, and maybe also tax rates have, in my experience, been the greatest obstacles to accepting common standards. But I think we have a unique opportunity now, together, to show that shared standards will work for the benefit of all, not only making our technical lives easier, but creating efficiencies and adding to the bottom line. Government budgets urgently need business revenue, and there will be pressure to open up the casinos and other venues in order to start to recoup the enormous economic damage the pandemic has inflicted. So would common standards and technology help in getting the industry back on its feet? I think it would. So that's a very new, very specific problem. But of course, the old favorites haven't gone away either. We still face issues around problem gambling generally, preventing access to those underage, increasing demands from international organizations such as the Financial Action Task Force to widen and deepen our anti-money laundering and terrorist financing defenses, and the need to continuously monitor our licensees to ensure compliance. Facing these and other challenges is not something that's best done alone. As I mentioned earlier, part of IAGA's mission is to open up and facilitate dialogue between regulators, and we think that this adds enormous value to our membership. But important as it is, it's not enough. Most regulators don't have the benefit of R&D budgets, and because we're essentially reactive to the creativity of industry, cutting-edge knowledge takes time to filter through. Having the sorts of dialogues this collaboration represents is exactly the right balance of opportunity, giving industry the chance to show regulators what their systems can do, while allowing regulators the opportunity to build confidence that technological change can still conform to their public duty principles. But let's be realistic, that's not an easy process, and it's not a quick one. One of the difficulties that we face across the regulatory world is that we're all in different periods of evolution in the development of our regulatory systems. While there are jurisdictions with advanced standards, so there are many with few or none. These equally vary across gaming categories within a jurisdiction. Speaking personally, I would love to see a game neutral, technology platform neutral, even a jurisdictional neutral set of gaming standards. But because we work for government, and because national governments differ in their public policy objectives, this is not something that's easy to achieve alone, or even as part of an international group like IAGA. I also think we have to accept there will always be those who, for diverse reasons, will not accept this industry and for whom the real damage it can do to a few outweighs the benefits it provides for many. I don't think that will ever change. However, I think there's now a broader recognition that the industry is more mature, that it's generally well run, and it doesn't have to try and cut corners in order to offer enticing product and make reasonable returns. That said, our challenge, our common challenge, is to make the regulatory space clearer and business more transparent so that trust, that key ingredient for success, can be built upon. That's why the agreement of our two organizations to work together is so important. IAGA has significant expertise in policy development and regulation. But I'll be the first to admit we don't always match that level of expertise when it comes to technology. Together, our two organizations will be able to identify areas where technology can enhance regulatory capabilities. Critical regulatory areas such as responsible gaming, data transparency, and increased data security will benefit from innovative technical solutions that better protect the integrity of the systems and, by extension, protect players. It seems clear to me that solutions identified through collaboration between the two associations have a higher likelihood of adoption, implementation, and success. Conversations on policy and gaming standards are therefore long overdue. We need to begin to discuss and understand each other better, and this is one of the platforms that we can use to better achieve that understanding. IAGA hopes this collaboration will introduce better engagement platforms for a better gaming environment. It's time to leverage on expertise from our sectors, where we can learn from each other and emulate best practice. When we accelerate efforts on information exchange and focus on the betterment and efficiency of gaming, we will eventually find better methods to combat illegal activity while also promoting responsible gaming in our jurisdictions. It's down to us to ensure that we work together and achieve what we have committed to. On behalf of my president, Mabuta Tswane, and the officers and trustees of IAGA, I look forward to the next 12 months and a deepening relationship between our two organizations. I thank you very much for inviting me to address your business meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason, for this very uplifting speech. It's very nice. And we look forward to the close collaboration as well. And to summarize, I think, coincidentally, what you just said, Jason, regulators need technology standard. IAGA and GSA are strategically perfectly aligned to move this dialogue further for our industry as a whole. And we believe that we have standards that could be the foundation for the industry's future. A lot of work has already been done, and together we can do this. Never give up hope. Now, before we get to the Q&A session, I would like to thank all of our members for their continued support of this organization over the last 22 years. During this incredible time in the history of our lives, we remain committed to support the industry as best as we can with the resources that we have available. Without your support, we will not be able to operate. GSA is very blessed to have been able to and to continue to be able to attract the best of the best in support of our mission. And a couple of personal notes. Lisa, we know you will be okay, but on behalf of all our members, we thank you for being such a bright light for all these years. And Ethan, we wish you many adventurous sailing trips and joyful times for you and your family. Your passion for perfection, your eye for detail, and your deeply rooted understanding of the technology and this industry has led to a series of powerful standards that are being recognized and used around the world. Thank you for leading and driving the standardization effort for the casino industry. Keep that satellite phone close. You never know. To our members in the industry, we encourage all of you to reach out to us, talk to us, share your thoughts and ideas on how collectively we can make our industry better. Thank you all for your trust.